بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم وبعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. In this session this evening, inshallah ta'ala, we cover verses 18 till the end of the surah, verse 24, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. If you scan through the verses, in fact, let us read the verses and we can familiarize ourselves with the particular section that we are covering. It's a very familiar section. You would have heard it many times before in your own recitation and in that of others. قال الله عز وجل بعد أن أقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون ولا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم أولئك هم الفاسقون لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة أصحاب الجنة هم الفائزون لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. صدق الله مولانا العظيم. So as I said, a familiar piece of recitation of the Quran. It's important, however, before we deep dive into these verses, to understand that this is the closing of the surah. And therefore, it would be wise of us to go back and ask ourselves, how does this closing fit into the rest of the structure of the surah? In the beginning, right at the beginning, the surah opens up by telling us that everything in the heavens, sabbaha, is glorifying, is declaring the transcendence of Allah. Who? Ma fi samawati wa ma fil ard. Everything in the heavens and everything in the earth. Everything is in tasbih of Allah. Wa huwa al-azizul hakim. And He's the mighty, He's the wise. This is the opening of the surah. Then, after establishing His authority and His kingship and His might, Allah Azza wa Jal then attributes the expulsion of Banu Nadir to Himself. So the whole thing was about these Yahud who were stationed in Medina in their fortresses. But before we even get to their expulsion, the first thing He tells us is about His praise. That everything is praising Him. Then, Huwa alladhi, He, Allah, is the one who akhraja alladhina kafaru. He expelled those disbelievers. So you notice, while the story is about Banu Nadir and the ayat about them, Allah Azza wa Jal firmly places their fate in His hands. Lest you think, O believers, that it's your efforts or your power or your intelligence that is going to defeat your enemy. It is not. Huwa alladhi, He, Allah, is the one who أخرج الذين كفروا. Okay. Then the verses about the Banu Nadir and how they were expelled, the defeat that they met. And then we spoke about their collapse and how they collapsed. We spoke about the division of the spoils of war and how the Ummah couldn't just look at the day of the battle, but they also needed to look at how do we restore justice after we've defeated the enemy? How do we look at the day after the war? You know, like they have the day after. And then they came up with a peace board and so forth. Allah Azza wa Jal teaches us also about the day after. But it's a very different picture. Because the marginalized get placed first. They get priority. The Muhajirun received the bulk of the spoils of the war. Even though this was a Madinan city. It was in Medina, a Madinan town. Banu Nadir was in Medina. Even though the Ansar were hosting the Muhajirun, right? And they essentially assisted them to get back on their feet after they made hijrah. Despite all of that, they were willing to put justice before themselves, to put restoration before themselves, to put the needs of others before their own. So we looked at that. Then rounding off the entire picture that we saw there, Allah praises the Muhajirun for their sacrifice and calls them the truthful ones because they sacrificed and they were willing to live by the faith that they claim. Then Allah praised the Ansar for their generosity and for their true brotherliness, willing to prefer others over themselves even though they had inferior goods. Then Allah praised those who come after them. And they separate themselves or distinguish themselves by praying for the other believers who came before them. Oh Allah, forgive us and our brethren who had preceded us in faith, and importantly, free our hearts of ill feelings for our fellow believers. So then Allah essentially told us the qualities of these people who were able to defeat Banu Nadir. And then I gave a khutbah about that last Friday because it occurred to me that so much time is spent after their defeat describing the Muhajirun and the Ansar and those who came after them. Why? They were already defeated. Like, why is the army important now? Why is the army being discussed now when they already won the battle? It's because Allah Azza wa Jalla wants us not only to know what happened, but how it happened. What were the qualities that we as an ummah had to adopt, had to develop before we could reach that station where we could easily defeat an enemy such as this? And it's it's the type of answer that we don't like to hear. And we want to hear about which army is going to come in and defeat them. And then Allah diverts our attention to say, have you adopted sacrifice, being true to your faith? Have you adopted preferring others over yourself, even though you are in need? Have you adopted the quality of freeing yourself from ill feelings? Because if you can adopt that, then you'll be like them. And if you are like them, then you can do what they did. And so we learn how nations rise and fall, not just because of military mechanisms and actions, but also because of the link with Allah. And that's what brings us to tonight's session. At the end of the surah, sealing the deal, Allah takes us back to how we started the surah. It's not even your qualities, it's not your military might, it's not your generosity, it's not your preference over anyone. Ultimately, victory is only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for as long as believers don't have that orientation, they will never be correctly oriented. So the verses commences, or rather, the set of verses commence at number 18. This verse immediately appeals to our conscience. Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O believers. Now this is a direct address to the believers. We are no longer talking about the Ansar, the Muhajirun, those who came after them. It's amal van julle, wat glo. Believers, talking to you. Ittaqullah. Have taqwa of Allah. And it would only be befitting that we define this as a refresher. Perhaps we forgot since Ramadan. Taqwa doesn't just mean fear Allah, even though that's how you'd probably see it in the translation. Fear Allah. It comes from the word taqwa. Ittaqullah, taqwa is what? In tafsir we learn it is hiya malakatun. It's a quality. Tahmilu sahibaha, that drives its possessor. Alam tithali awamirillah, to implement Allah's commands. Wajtinabin nawahihi, and to stay away from His prohibitions. So when Allah says ittaqullah, He's saying adopt that quality. How would we understand that in English? You can say God fear. I prefer God consciousness. Develop God consciousness. Try to live your life consistently conscious of your Creator. وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ. وَلْتَنْظُرْ. This is what we refer to in Arabic as lamul amr. وَلْتَنْظُرْ. Let every soul look. It's not saying and look, it's saying let look. It's a command. Nafsun, a soul, any soul, every soul must look. Ma qaddamat, what it sent forth. Lighadin, for tomorrow. Let every soul look at what it sent forth for tomorrow. Wattaqullah, and be conscious of Allah. Develop taqwa. The verse closing off, or rather beginning the closing off of the surah, starts off with a prioritization for the believers. O believers, you want victory? Ittaqullah. Have taqwa of Allah. And وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ. Let every person look at what he or she is sending forth for the akhirah, for tomorrow. We are looking for victory here. Are we looking for victory here or in the akhirah? We're looking for victory here. We're talking about the Banu Nadir. We're talking about the Iron Dome. We're talking about visible enemies. Ittaqullah. Step number 1. وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ. Step number 2, become akhirah orientated. Become akhirah orientated. I know it sounds very theoretical. What does that mean? Don't underestimate this. Notice that when the Prophet ﷺ diagnosed the problem that we face as an ummah, he said it is wahan. And then he defined wahan. He said what? Hubbud dunya wa karahiyatul maut. Loving the worldly life and disliking the afterlife, death. This is his exact diagnosis. So there must be some serious truth to this theory. Because here again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, immediately after this profound victory, is telling the ummah, here are the qualities you should adopt. And more importantly than that, this is the orientation you should have. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullah, have taqwa of Allah, wal tanzur nafsum ma qaddamat lighad. Everyone must look at what we are sending forth for tomorrow. I'm going to ask a very difficult question now, to myself also, to all of you. And it's the question that Allah is asking us here. What are we sending forth for tomorrow? Like, just think about it. What are we genuinely doing for our akhirah? If you were to write it down. Things I did for my akhirah. Investments I made. Like for your dunya, if I were to tell you, look here, come, we sit down, tell me what did you plan for your retirement? I'm sure each and every person will be able to give me some sort of plan. I've got a savings here. I've got an investment there. I've got these assets, etc. Something. Even just an idea of what we hope to achieve and to do. But how many of us can genuinely even articulate what we've sent forth for our afterlife? What preparations we've made for our qabr? And does it make sense? Like, just think about it. We spend, retirement is what, 65 for some? Right? So you have from about 65 till maybe 70, 75, maybe 80, 85 if you're lucky. 20 or so years, and we plan, and we prepare, and we put down concrete steps. And then you ask, okay, and then after that, when you're maninga, and then you're in the qabr, how long are you going to be there for? How long has your parents been in the qabr? How long have your grandparents been in the qabr? How long have your great-grandparents been in the qabr? How long has Tuan Guru been in the qabr? And so too, we will be in our graves for an extended period of time. Hatta zurtumul maqabir, until you visit the graves, because you won't even be there forever. Then it's qiyamah. Like 50,000 years of what we count in this dunya. 50,000 years. We in the year 2026. That's the Gregorian calendar. So 2026 supposed years after Nabi Isa ﷺ was born. We're far from 50,000. And Allah is telling us that the day of Qiyamah itself will be 50,000 years. What preparations do we have for the day of Qiyamah? For our judgment, for our Jannah. What concrete steps have we put down? Like we can, again, concretely we can say, I dedicated 12 years to get matric, and then I dedicated another so many years to get my degree, and then so many years for this, so many, then I worked, then I have this policy, that policy. It's all for the dunya, predominantly. And here Allah is telling us to orient yourself for victory such as this. You need to become akhirah-oriented believers. If you want to have an understanding of what it's like to be an akhirah-oriented person in living color, in living, breathing reality in front of you, then speak to somebody from Gaza. Just have a conversation with them. They live with death. They live with death. Like as normal as it is for you and I to discuss on Wednesday night is a class, Friday is Jumu'ah, death is part of the conversation for them. And they've made peace with that type of reality. So because that's their reality, they're prioritizing akhirah always. They'll be willing to make any sacrifice of the dunya. When you have nothing to lose, because you don't value what you have, but you value what is to gain, you'll be willing to sacrifice everything. And that's what this ayah is telling us. It's not become, what's the word? Like monks or hermits and remove yourself from the dunya. No, that's not the point. It is, وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدْ. What are you sending forth for tomorrow? What are you preparing for the akhirah, for the rest of your life? Wattaqullah. And then Allah ends off the ayah by saying, Inna Allah khabirun bima ta'malun. Allah is well informed of what you do. Now we spoke about it on a very big scale in our lives, but let's look at it on a micro scale, on a daily basis. Right? Imagine if it were not for our 5 compulsory salahs, how much time would we be spending with Allah? This is the mercy of Islam that Allah facilitates. There's a minimum contact time with Allah, right? That sustains us. It's not that we're doing it because we're pious. People have this weird conception. No, when you're pious, then you make salah. It's stupid thinking. I don't know how people can think like that. It's like thinking, when I'm fit, then I'll go run. It doesn't work like that. You run or you do the exercise, then you become fit. And it sustains you. As you do it more, you keep fit more. So, we have to ask ourselves on a daily basis, other than our 5 daily salahs, what investments are we sending forth for the akhirah? How much of our time goes into frivolous activities of the dunya? Let's be honest. Whether it's scrolling on our phones, doom scrolling, binge watching. And I'm not only talking about haram things, I'm talking about permissible, enjoyment, games. Right? Games. People can spend hours upon hours upon hours upon hours just stuck to these things. Okay, fine. I'm not going to stand here and say, no, all of this must stop. I'm just asking the question that Allah is asking us. What have you sent forth for tomorrow? Like in your life, this life that's so full, what really matters when the doctor gives you the news that you have cancer? What really matters when you see the headlights coming on and you know that at this speed, brakes, no brakes, this is it? What really matters in that moment of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis that take up so much of our time? وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. Allah is all aware of what you do. So it's almost as if to say, we're making these claims with our lips. We want victory. We want to be successful. We want the ummah to come out of the darkness. We want to see the light at the end. Knows that what you say with your mouth and what you do with your hands are two totally different things. Like we can't be the ummah that on the one hand we cry out injustice, injustice, Ya Allah help us, and then we don't wake up for Fajr. That there is really the crux of why we find ourselves where we find ourselves from a spiritual perspective. And Allah knows. Like we can't fool Allah. We can put up pretense for each other. Show up at the march, because of that, I'm also a supporter. But we can't do the same thing with Allah. We can put up shows for others, but Allah knows our true intent and objectives inside and out. Allah doesn't just look at what you put on, He looks at what's inside. So when we make these big claims that we want to be the successful ummah, the successful ummah is an ummah that lives akhirah first. Always. Akhirah first. وَتَنْظُرْ نَفْسُ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ. Then Allah tells us. Now remember the whole surah is classifying people. There's this group, there's this group, there's this group. That's the whole surah. And the whole Quran is like that also. And it's always putting it in front of you, like which group do you want to be part of? These are the qualities of this group. These are the qualities of this group. Allah presents it to us like that. Right? It's always like here are the different pathways you choose. And here's the outcome of each. So the next verse number 19 says, وَلَا تَكُونُوا, do not be. He told you how you must be. Now he's telling you how you must not be. Do not be كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهِ, like those who forgot Allah. They forgot Allah. فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ, so He made them forget themselves. This is the Ajib verse. So that whole consumption lifestyle that I just spoke about now, right? Consuming. Binge watch, zombie reality. That there causes you to forget Allah. Bottom line. Right? Unless you have some super disciplined family member or internal discipline, that game is not going to stop for Dhuhr. It's not going to stop for Asr. It's not going to stop for Maghrib. The sports match is not going to take a break. The Salah is going to have to wait till halftime until the game is over. But Allah is telling us to not be like them. Don't be like those who put Allah second. Don't be like those who forgot about Allah. Because what will happen? The more you forget about Allah, you'll forget about yourselves. You'll forget who you are. You'll forget where you come from. You'll forget what you stand for. You'll forget what you believe and what you don't believe. Because you've taken Allah out of the equation. This is what happens when you live a life devoid of the remembrance of Allah. And Allah is directly telling us, don't be like them. Imagine, like this reality, we see it around us all the time. People are so engulfed by the dunya, they eventually lose themselves in it. I'm sure you've seen this a million times before. Somebody, mashallah, they become successful perhaps, right? Dunyawi success, material success. And then suddenly, they change more. It goes beyond the house and the car. It goes to the personality also. And then it goes further. It becomes a superiority complex. And then they forget themselves. How does that happen? It happens when you forget Allah. I mean, to take people as examples would be difficult. But look at the United Arab Emirates. Right? Imagine you come from a legacy of Islam. You come from a legacy of absolute honor in this world and in the world after. And you swallow the dunya to such an extent. The dunya becomes so important to you. It becomes such a priority to you to have the highest skyscrapers and the most money and the biggest stars coming to stay by you, that you forget Allah to the extent that you become the greatest ally of Israel, or one of the greatest allies of Israel. فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. You forget Allah, Allah will make you forget yourself. Subhanallah. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. And people who forget themselves, in other words, they forget their faith, they forget who they stand for, what they stand for, and what they believe. Those are the sinners. Fasiqun. They are the disobedient ones. لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة. Allah goes straight into saying that the people of the fire are not the same as the people of Jannah. This is a very obvious statement. The people of the fire are in the fire, the people of Jannah are in Jannah. So what's the point of saying it? You can see that they're different. If they're in the fire, they're in the fire. If they're in Jannah, they're in Jannah. How are they not the same? No, it's not just they're not the same in the Akhirah, they're not the same in this dunya either. They'll be the ones who don't forget Allah. They'll be the ones who remember Allah frequently. They are the ones who اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ. They don't just live for the dunya, they live for the Akhirah primarily. So therefore they are not the same. Now hold it. We can't just let this slide by. Because the key here is La yastawi. They are not equal. They are not the same. So, how is it that so many of us still try to be like them? If the key in the verse is the differentiating factors between them. They are the companions of Jannah, they are the companions of Jahannam. They can't be the same. So why would the companions of Jannah aspire to be more like the companions of Jahannam in their lifestyles in the dunya? And I think this, for me, is essentially one of the biggest wake-up calls that the Palestinian struggle has brought to my life. That idea of Western values, Western brands, Western styles, fashion, trends, everything is the yardstick. So we want to wear like them, look like them, talk like them, watch their movies, listen to their music. We even want to follow their scholars. And it's the thing, right? I have nothing against scholars who come from America, but it's a problem where for no other reason except that the person has an American accent, their message is more appealing to you. It's part and parcel of this whole infatuation with the West. It's not by accident, it's deliberate. It is designed in that way. Colonialists brought their trends with them, right? That's why wearing a suit and a tie is formal wear. Who made that formal wear? It's English formal wear, and they just exported it everywhere else. So when the American empire comes in, they'll force their culture everywhere else. But believers are told in the Quran, لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة. They can't be the same. So don't aspire to their trends. أصحاب الجنة هم الفائزون. The companions of Jannah, they are the truly successful ones. So now we've got, subhanAllah, several verses highlighting the qualities that this ummah should adopt if we want the type of victory that we saw at Banu Nadir. Verse 21 gives us not the how you should be, but what you need to rely on in order to get there. Allah says, لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل. If we had sent down this Quran على جبل, upon a mountain, لرأيته, this lam here is for emphasis. La, you would certainly, رأيته, have seen it, خاشعا, humbled, متصدعا, broken, destroyed, min khashyatillah, out of the fear of Allah. Out of its khashya is specifically the type of fear that you have when you know someone and their status, their might just makes you tremble. It's that type of fear. وَتِلْكَ الْأَمْثَالِ, and these examples, نَضْرِبُهَا, we present them لِلنَّاسِ, to the people, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ, so that they may make tafakkur. So let's make some tafakkur. Allah is telling us in this verse, if we sent this Quran upon a mountain, you would have seen it humbled and torn apart out of the awe of Allah. What's this verse telling us? In essence, it's saying to you and I, this Quran's power, this Quran's majesty, its blessings, its guidance is so moving, is so phenomenal, that if its reality was to be revealed upon a mountain, the effect that it would have upon the mountain is that the mountain would be humbled. And the mountain would just break under Allah's awe. And so we should reflect, because why does it then not have that impact on me? That's the essence of the lesson. Allah is telling me, you and I, لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل, if we were to reveal this Quran upon a mountain, you would have seen it humbled and completely destroyed out of the khashya of Allah. But it wasn't revealed upon a mountain. It was revealed upon humans. So then, what impact must it then have on a human? And then we see that this is being brought right at the tail end of this whole discussion of Banu Nadir. That's the impact. That there is the impact. When believers go back to the source of guidance that Allah had given us, which is the Quran, as we are doing now, trying to decipher where are we supposed to be, how are we supposed to be feeling, how do we orientate our lives, and we're just getting answers. We're just getting answers. These answers are powerful, and if we abide by them, if we actually implement them in our lives, we will see our lives changing as phenomenally as these mountains would humble themselves and crumble. And I bear testimony to this, right? How do I bear testimony to this? In my own experience, remember my studies were somewhat different. My first and second year was at Darul Naim, and the first year was the study of the complete Quran, right, cover to cover. So I was very much green before going into that journey. Didn't know much about, relatively speaking, didn't know much about Islam or belief or Aqidah or anything. And so, not through nasiha, not through fiqh lessons, not through tasawwuf lessons, not through a series of classes, but straight from the Quran came my journey, interacting with the verses of the Quran. So the changes, my transformation, everything, the source of it was the Book of Allah coming through the teacher, in the same way that we're engaging with it here, right? But it was every day. And I can tell you that when you take the Quran as seriously as that, okay, I'm going through this Quran now, verse for verse, surah for surah, and as I learn, I'm going to implement. No matter how difficult it is, no matter how strange it is for me, I'm going to implement to the best of my ability. If you do that, you'll see your life and everything around it changing like you'd never believe is possible. Allah grant that to us. And it doesn't come easily. Like you can sit in this class and I can tell you, the information that we are getting, the guidance that we are getting is profound. But we're also sitting here, we've worked, it's been stormy, it's cold. It doesn't just come like that. You don't just sit in a class, listen to the Maulana say something, listen to it once, okay, that's interesting, sounds nice, makes sense, go home, khalas, forget about it. That's not how it comes. It comes, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ, with tafakkur. You have to think about it. You have to really understand it. You have to ask the tough questions and receive the answers and live with that guidance. The last 3 verses is a profound declaration of Allah's majesty. There's not much explanation here. It's Allah closing the surah the way He opened it. Remember how it opened? سَبَّحَ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ. Everything in the heavens and everything in the earth is in the state of the remembrance of Allah, declaring His tasbih. It ends the same way. So what lesson do we learn there? How do you learn a lesson from verses that just speak about Allah? Well, number one, we learn about Allah. So these verses are going to tell us more about our Rabb. Maybe we didn't realize or recognize some of what is about to be said. And number two, Allah is telling us that at the beginning and at the end of whatever mission lies in front of you, no matter what size fortresses they have, no matter the Iron Dome, no matter the armies, Allah first, Allah last. That's the recipe for success. Huwa Allahu alladhi, He is Allah, alladhi, the one who, la ilaha illa hu, there is no God except He. Alimul ghaybi. Alim is the knower. Al-ghayb, what does ghayb mean? The unseen. Alimul ghayb is the knower of the unseen. Wash-shahada, and the witness. Says the knower of the unseen and the seen. Huwa ar-Rahman. He is the all-merciful. Rahman refers to Allah's general mercy that covers everyone and everything, including the disbelievers. And that's reflected in 1% of Allah's mercy. Whereas Ar-Rahim, the especially merciful, is the other 99% of Allah's mercy that is reserved exclusively for the believers in the Akhirah. Hu Allah, He is Allah. Alladhi, the one who, la ilaha illa hu, there is no God except He. Notice it's the same declaration, different after statement. Huwa al-Malik, He is the king, not Trump, not Netanyahu, not Fir'aun, not Haman. He, Allah, is the king. Al-Quddus, the sovereign, the holy one. Quddus from the word Quds. Qadasa means that which is sanctified, that which is holy, that which is free of imperfection. Al-Quddus is on a scale of hyperbole. Subbuhun Quddusun Rabbul Malaikati wal Ruh. He's extremely glorified. He's extremely holy. He's the Lord of the angels and Jibreel. Quddus. As-Salam. He is the giver of peace. Not peace like As-Salam, the peace. He is As-Salam, the giver of peace. When it comes to Allah and His name As-Salam, after the salah is Allahumma anta as-salam, wa minka as-salam, wa ilayka yarji'u as-salam. Allahumma, O Allah, anta as-salam, you are As-Salam. Doesn't mean you are the peace. It means you are the giver of peace. This is Allah's name. Wa minka, and from you, As-Salam is peace. And that's peace in the conventional sense. وَإِلَيْكَ يَرْجِعُ السَّلَامُ, and to you returns all peace. So here when we're discussing it in the ayah, it's the name of Allah, As-Salam, the giver of peace. Al-Mu'min. Normally, Mu'min means believer. This is for Allah, Al-Mu'min. It means the one who gives safety. From Amina Ya'manu, to be safe. When somebody is Ameen, they are safe. Aminin, safety. So Mu'min is the one who gives safety. Notice these names in relation to times of war. He's ascribing ultimate might to him, Malik Qudus, and then also Salam, the giver of peace, Mu'min, the giver of safety, Al-Muhaymin, the guardian, the one who watches and guards. Al-Aziz is also the mighty, the ultimate authority. From Izzah, which means honor and might. Al-Jabbar, the irresistible. Some weird translations for these names, Jabbar and Mutakabbir. You see, in relation to a human, it would be a very bad word. You say somebody is Jabbar, like Netanyahu is Jabbar, tyrannical, oppressive. It's a bad word for a human. But Al-Jabbar is referring to Allah. He is irresistible. He's Jabbar. He can coerce you and none can coerce him. His force is irresistible. You can't resist it. Al-Mutakabbir, again, for a human. If you say this person is Mutakabbir, means he's arrogant. One Maulana told me once that he was in a masjid and the person was making dua in English. And then he came to this part of the dua. I don't know if he was sitting with the Arabic dua in front of him, but then he said something, he translated it as arrogant in relation to Allah. Oh Allah, you are, and then he said arrogant. So it's a very dangerous one, Al-Mutakabbir. In relation to Allah, it doesn't mean arrogant, of course not. In relation to Allah, it is the ultimate, the supreme, the one who is grand, genuinely grand. When somebody else, when a human is mutakabbir, they want to be that. But they are not that. But they are trying to be that. They are feigning grandeur. Allah can't feign grandeur. He is grand. So he is mutakabbir, the supreme. Subhanallah. Transcendent is Allah. When we say Subhanallah, it means we're declaring that Allah is free of any imperfections. Amma yushrikun, over and above what they associate with Him. Huwa Allahul Khaliq, He is Allah, the Creator. Al-Bari', the Inventor. Khaliq and Bari is very similar. Khaliq is the Creator and Bari is also the Creator really. Al-Musawwir, the Fashioner. If you want to know the exact details, that requires much more tafsir. The Asma'ullah al-Husna and elaboration on what they mean. For now, I'm just giving a basic understanding. Al-Musawwir is the Fashioner, the one who made you black or white or yellow or pink, who gave you the texture of your hair, the eye color, your height. That's Musawwir, the Fashioner, the one who fashioned you the way you are. Lahu, for him, al-Asma'ul Husna, are the most beautiful names. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a hadith says to us that Allah has 99 names, 100 except one. Whosoever counts them, whosoever enumerates them, dakhal al-Jannah, he will enter into Jannah. Scholars have understood this in various ways because Allah's names are not limited to 99. There are more descriptions of Allah. But there are 99 mentioned in this particular hadith, various narrations. So, ideally, we should try to memorize the Asma'ul Husna along with its meanings. And ideally, all of us should have a journey of discovery of Allah's names in our own lives. You don't need to have attend a course or read a book, but throughout your lives, try to learn more and more of the names of Allah. What does this mean? What's the difference between Rahman and Rahim? What is Musawwir? When do I make dua with Aziz? When do I make dua with Hakim? Because this is how you have a relationship with Allah. Think about it like this. وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَدَعُوهُ بِهَا. In the Quran, Allah says Allah has the most beautiful names, so call Him by those names. Right? I try to... No example equates to Allah, but think about it. Many of you are parents. You tell your child, my son, my daughter, when you say, my dearest daddy, my son, just as an example, when you say that word, my heart melts, I'll give you anything. Imagine how that son or daughter will abuse that name now. My dearest daddy, in and out, left, right, and center. Why not? My daddy just told me that that's the name that he wants to be called by, and then you'll give me. Of course they're going to use the name. Allah tells us, Allah has the most beautiful names. Call me with those names. So we should make a concerted effort to call Allah by those names. There are various ways you can do it. You can, for example, just recite the Asma al-Husna. So in our dhikr, it's part of the dhikr. Because remember the whole werk, the idea of a werk is we're offering ibadah and then we're going to make dua. Because you're doing the werk for some reason, for some niyyah. So you'll find in this werk so much dhikr and virtue that it's really powerful. But what about in your daily life? Like what dua do you make when you're sick? Or when the finances are tight? Or you're stuck in traffic? Like there isn't always going to be a prescribed Qala Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You know, the Prophet said, it's not always going to be that way. So as an example, right? If I need to be somewhere and I see that there's a potential for traffic, automatically my tongue starts reciting Ya Fattah, Ya Fattah, O Opener, O Opener. No one told me to do that. I didn't read it anyway. It just makes sense to me that Allah, being Al-Fattah, the one who opens up, can open up the way for me. And Allah said I must call him by this name. So I'm using his name. And we can all do that. But you just have to make a concerted effort to, learn a few every now and then. يُسَبِّحُ لَهُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. How did the surah begin? Let's look at it again. سَبَّحَ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. Everything in the heavens, everything in the earth is declaring his transcendence. And he is the mighty, he is the wise. Notice, the surah opens with that statement and it closes with that statement. Because there will be more Banu Nadirs, and there will be more Munafiqun, and there will be more Fir'auns, and there will be more Hamans, and there will be more Muhajirun and Ansar and other believers who will be crying and wondering what, how, where, who. And Allah wants us to remember that at the beginning and at the end, Allah is in control of everything. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from among those who read the Quran, understand it, reflect on it and implement it in our lives. May we be from those who benefit from the khair and the nur that is conveyed when we listen to the lesson of the Quran. And may Allah save our ummah and bring us to better times again and bring victory to our ummah, our brothers and our sisters around the world, wherever there's suffering, wherever there's calamity, wherever there's misfortune. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free and liberate Masjid al-Aqsa and Mubarak and grant us to pray therein in our lifetime. Ameen ya Rabbal Alamin. طيب, any questions? Okay, come on. We conclude on that note. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.